you're a Christian, love Jesus, and want to tell others about him, but don't quite know how to do that, well, stay tuned. This video is for you. If you've been a Christ follower for years and years, and you know the Great Commission in Matthew 28 tells Christians everywhere to go and make disciples, but you've never really done personal evangelism, well, stay tuned. This video is for you. This video will help you get started. We'll talk about 5 specific things you can do to get started sharing your faith, evangelizing in 2025. And if you stay until the end, we'll even send you something to help you get started sharing Jesus in the new year. Wherever you are spiritually, a new Christian or been a believer for many years, sometimes it can be daunting. It can be difficult to get started in doing evangelism. It was for me. But you can begin now and feel the joy that comes in your spirit for being obedient to the Great Commission, and it'll give you a whole new direction in your spiritual life. The good news is you don't have to be a trained evangelist. You don't have to have a seminary background. You don't have to know the Bible backwards and forwards before evangelizing in our city, in Richmond. So stick around and we'll show you 5 different effective ways you can get started sharing Jesus with others in the new year. That's exactly what Evangelize RVA or ERVA is really all about. We're a small group of Christians from different churches who share a passion to tell others in our city about Jesus. ERVA is here to encourage each other. We work alongside other believers to evangelize the lost. Our threefold mission statement of ERVA is this: to encourage the saints to share the good news of Jesus Christ, to equip those desiring to do the Great Commission with the tools necessary to tell others about Jesus, and finally, to evangelize the lost in our city, in Richmond, Virginia. So what's the first way to begin evangelizing our city? Well, here's number 1. First of all, and absolutely essential, is that you make a personal decision, a conscious decision to do evangelism, to tell others about Jesus. Pray for strength and wisdom as you have to decide in your own heart to go where you know God is leading you, even if you've never done it before, and even maybe outside of your comfort zone. You'll find that God will expand your comfort zone to do things that you've never dreamt about doing before. God doesn't need your great intellect or mind, or a knowledge of the Bible, or a sense of humor, or wonderful personality. God really just needs you and me and every Christ follower to make ourselves available to be used by Him and for His purpose of sharing Jesus with the lost. When I began to evangelize in Florida more than 15 years ago, I quickly realized that God was working through me in the hearts of those I might be talking to. It was clear that it was not me keeping people in these spiritual conversations, but rather His Holy Spirit being about His business of saving the lost. God is really, really good at this evangelism stuff. It is His heart, His passion to see people saved. It's why He sent Jesus to the cross, so that everyone might be saved, everyone might believe in Him. So the first thing you have to do as you pray is to humbly submit yourself and your will to His will. Like Isaiah said, "Here I am, send me." Number 2, the second step in getting started in 2025 is pretty simple too. One way you can do that is to commit to passing out Christian materials, tracting wherever you might be, whoever you're with, wherever you might go. Now, before you click on this video and hit somewhere else, please consider that tracting really works and is biblical. In Mathew 13, Jesus Himself sort of endorses the idea of sowing seeds, much like tracting when He gives us the parable of the sower. When the farmer's sowing seed, he knows that some seed falls on the path where it cannot grow, that some seed falls in briars and the rocky soil where it might grow initially but is eventually stunted. But the farmer also knows that some seed will fall on fertile soil and that there is an abundant crop yielding 30 or 60 times what was sown. In this parable, we can see clearly the idea of the farmer spreading spiritual seed widely and trusting God. That's what we're doing with Christian tracts. We are the farmer, the sower, spreading spiritual seed everywhere and trusting God to provide the growth, God to connect the person with His Holy Spirit. The seed can take the form of books or tracts or conversations, however we might point people towards Christ. If you think about it, you need to realize that 80% of witnessing encounters in the Gospels and in Acts were between total strangers. Sort of sounds similar to tracting to me. If you want to see what tracting might look like, please consider joining us downtown sometimes at VCU or MCV as we use tracting or tabling as a method to connect with the lost, to engage them with the good news. For the past few years, we've worked together to share the good news. We've passed out more than 30,000 tracts at VCU and elsewhere throughout our city. Many of those stopping to take material or tracts will engage in a spiritual conversation too, and we have the opportunity to talk about life and death, about eternity, and about a God who loves them more than they could imagine. I need to add that ERVA is certainly not the only ones doing evangelism in Richmond, but we are a group of Christians doing what we can to tell the lost about his son. There is a separate video on this channel about tracting do's and don'ts, and you might find you want to check that out too. I will say that tracting is easy. It's really kind of fun. You can put the tracts in the hands of people, or you can casually leave tracts behind, as I did in a recent visit to the Social Security office or in the doctor's waiting room, or even stuff them in bookshelves at Barnes & Noble. You may be thinking that tracting will never work, but it does. There's a link below in the narrative that tells the powerful story of one single man in Sydney, Australia, who impacted the lives of thousands all over the world by a simple practice of regularly passing out tracts to those passing by his small shop. Like the example in Jesus' parable of the sower from Matthew 13, or the testimony of the shopkeeper in Sydney, you can start evangelizing in the new year in 2025 by passing out tracts in our community. Number 3, the third way to begin evangelizing in 2025 is to learn to swing an ordinary conversation into a spiritual conversation. And it's really easier than you might imagine. Just remember that talking about spiritual matters is so much more important than any other conversation you might have. It's more important than talking about the weather or sports or anything else, because it can impact their eternity. Swinging a conversation to the spiritual is what initially attracted me to personal evangelism 15 years ago. I saw that God could use even me to talk to strangers about Jesus, about eternity, about creation, about things that really matter. I remember thinking, I can do that. It's actually quite simple. The next time you're sharing coffee or spending time with a casual acquaintance or a friend, ask them something like this. So, we've known each other for a while, but I've never really asked you something. Do you have any spiritual beliefs or church background? It's quite simple and quite effective. We've asked thousands of students and strangers over the years that one simple question. Do you know that simple question can lead to the deeper spiritual conversations about that person's life, about their spiritual beliefs, and where they might be headed in eternity? In my experience, no one has ever been asked that question and gotten really mad or angry or belligerent. In fact, most people are actually happy to talk about their favorite subject themselves. It's so important to remember God will often prompt that person to be remarkably open and transparent with you, with me, even if we are complete strangers. And that spiritual conversation can lead that person towards Jesus, towards salvation, and have an effect on their eternity. I've heard the term God adventure, and it is amazing. It is so rewarding, so joyful to get to be a witness to what God is doing in that person's life. Here's number 4. Just like fishing, in order to catch a fish, you have to drop a line in the water. When you're fishing, you can't see the fish that might be underneath the surface of the water and ready to bite until you actually put the hook out there and see what happens. So provide spiritual hooks wherever you can, in as many different places or shapes or forms. Pray about it, and then get that chosen sweatshirt out of the closet when you go shopping or walking into the neighborhood, and see what people's reaction is. See if the server at your local restaurant, your favorite restaurant, the person next in line at Target, maybe the shop mechanic, asks you about your chosen sweatshirt, and be prepared to respond and get involved in a spiritual conversation. Or you might initiate the conversation. Ask the server about the cross that they are wearing, or compliment them on the cross and ask them, are you a Christian, or do you have a church background? Does that question sound familiar? See step number 3. Ask them about the tattoo on their arm. You might be surprised where that conversation might lead. And stick around, we have one more great way to get started sharing the good news in 2025, and we'll even send you something to help you get started. So if you found this video helpful, hit the like button and subscribe. It will help attract others to this ministry. New videos from Evangelize RVA, ERVA, are posted on a regular basis. You need to be notified when each new video is released. So here's number 5. Please consider joining us at ERVA. We'd love to have you work beside us. There's so many people in Richmond who don't know Jesus. ERVA is about Christians working together to bring the truth and light of Jesus Christ to those who are lost in our city. So please consider this a personal invitation. ERVA is just an informal group of Christians from different churches, each with a passion for sharing Jesus with the lost. We know from personal experience that it's hard to evangelize by yourself sometimes. You may feel lonely, the only one in your church interested in doing personal evangelism. The truth is, you're not alone. There are many people in the Richmond who want to and know they need to be sharing Jesus, sharing the good news. You can join us at an outreach at VCU or at MCV, on the sidewalk in front of Planned Parenthood, or at a bus stop downtown. We can also help you get in touch with other ministries where God might be calling you. We can even provide training about evangelism or apologetics to your church or to your small group. You can contact us at evangelizerva@gmail.com or connect with us at evangelizerva.org. And as a special offer, we'll even send you a gospel tracts that you can use to pass out on your own to get started in 2025. So here's a personal call to action in 2025. Make a New Year's resolution that you will commit to getting out of your seat at church and ask God to show you where you can go, where He might be leading you to be obedient to the Great Commission in 2025. It certainly doesn't have to be with us. It's just important that you commit to going, and then you follow through with that, of being obedient to God in 2025. He will lead you to the most important business of sharing the good news of Jesus with the lost in our city. I can tell you that there's no greater joy in this life than knowing that you're obedient to God's will in your life. We'll see you in the next video.